Hey guys, I'm in sport mode right now. I 100% believe that somehow, after running through the forest for several hours, I would somehow have the energy to come back home and put on makeup and be like reasonable and look reasonable to be able to film an intro and outro. And this was beyond wishful thinking. This was impossible thinking. That's why I look like I'm about to go on an expedition. I mean, I don't very clearly. And I have to say, I'm a high performance athlete. If you ever run into me in public and you see me looking like this in sports mode, you better hide and prepare to defend yourself mentally and physically. I spent a lot of time on this illustration. It took me a lot longer than I thought it would. I'm really genuinely proud of how the results came out. I think it's really fun cartoon piece. So I'm going to hand the video over to past me in 3, 2, 1. Every single project begins with a solid plan, and to begin a solid plan, we need to conduct some solid research. What is fear? Hands are quite scary. This is horrifying. Eyes and eyes. Through our research, we can see that here's an eye, more eyes. Big, perfect example of eyes and how scary they are. Let's see. Oh no. Walking into the sky. Look at this. 5 fun fitness date ideas. I've never considered doing this on a date. See, this is not what we're looking for. But you know what? Maybe it's kind of good to know what the opposite of scary is so that when we're designing, we can avoid it. Jesus is the opposite of scary. As we can see, there's a small town. I'm assuming it's Bethlehem. Also palm trees. So we want to make sure that we avoid palm trees in our final illustration. Scary. You know, we have some classic scary clowns. We have Pennywise. Then we have Pennywise. And then we have Pennywise. Small teeth. Pennywise, 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 Pennywise. Brown teeth. Snake boy. It seems that what is scary is various forms of boy. So we have boy is scary, but then we also have snake boy is scary. Technically, Pennywise would be clown boy. I'm going to look up some things now that I personally know are scary that don't seem to be coming up, and I really can't figure out why they're not coming up, because these are the scariest things that exist on the planet. Oh, scared the shit out of me. If this doesn't strike terror into your heart, then I don't know what will. Another thing that's scary that I know of is... Okay, I forgot, I thought that for a minute it felt too real, but then I realized it's fine, like it's in the computer and it can't get me. What makes us fearful? Darkness or loss of visibility. Heights and flying. Bird, plane. Social interaction or rejection. Snakes, rodents, spiders, and other animals. Okay, death and dying. I think this is the biggest one, probably. I think everything else hinges on this one. While anxiety is a common experience for many people, it can be considered a disorder when it interferes with basic life tasks such as work and sleep. Unemployment. Facial expression of fear. And then we have this diagram here. This clarifies a lot of things for me. The facial expression of fear is often confused with surprise. Common sensations include feeling cold, ice cream, rock, I think. Like when you touch one that's like, it's cold, sunshine. We do not need to feel another person's fear to accept it and help them cope. What is this trying to say to me? Is this trying to say to me that I don't have empathy? Micro-expression training tools. 119. Every 3 months to learn the fundamentals of spotting micro and subtle expressions. So you don't need to buy this, right? I'm going to give you a few different micro expressions. I'm going to number them, and then in the description, I'll put what they were. You don't have to spend $119. You can just come back to this part of the video and practice, and then use the key in the description. Here's expression number 1. Here's expression number 2. Here's expression number 3. Once again, I'm going to put the answers to what all those micro expressions were, and you can just come back to that spot in the video and then practice. Halloween, less commonly known as All Halloween. Halloween. It begins the observance of All Hallow Tide. This time in the liturgical year, church. Popular Halloween activities include trick-or-treating, or the related guising and souling. Are you guys going guising? Are you guys going guising and souling this Halloween? Apple bobbing. Telling scary stories. Books. / reading. Wait, tradition reflected in the eating of certain vegetarian foods. Vegetables. Potato pancakes. Soul cakes. Soul mass cake. Okay. Soul cakes. That's the scariest food I've ever seen in my life. I think we've got like a general sort of idea of what we want to do. I need to start sketching out some of these ideas and figure out how to incorporate them into our haunted house. The spookiest haunted house that the world has ever seen. I created a sketch to plan out what the entire haunted house would look like, but I think I'm going to keep that out of the video so that the end product is more of a surprise. I took my sketch and lowered the opacity and then put it on a separate layer. For my lining brush, I went with Syrup, which is one of the default brushes that Procreate has. I really like the way that this brush has varying width. The shape is kind of like an irregular triangle, so it just creates a little bit more of an interesting line than something that is all rounded or oval shaped or something like that. For the style, I kept it really cartoon. I liked how the room with the apple bobbing turned out. I had a lot of fun like drawing the lines for the flooring and stuff. I've been into like water distortions and how water would distort line and stuff like that. And just finding ways to abstract that and take water distortions, which are really detailed, you know, in real life with the like natural lighting and shading, and turn them into like line art, like a simplified, more cartoon look. So I had a lot of fun like figuring out how the lines would move underwater. It's super simple. It's just like, you know, making the lines more wiggly and stuff, but it gives a really cool effect. I had to add in a tree. I could not resist, guys. I could not resist. The trees call for me, and I call for the trees, and I speak for the trees, and the trees speak for me, and but yeah, so I added a tree. I can't help it. If you would like to see more trees by me, just follow me on Instagram. That is where I post many trees. So then I put a texture over the entire thing. It was like a black grainy sort of texture to give it that old sort of cartoon look. And then I put my favorite color, orange, over the entire thing. And immediately I was feeling so good about this piece. A little bit of orange and your whole day just turns around. Orange is my favorite color because it is the color of fruit and the sun. But then I started going into color. So I made a color layer. Well, actually, I think this is a hue, but color or hue would both work for this. And then I lowered the opacity and started adding in blues and grays. Because when you put a gray over the top of a warm color, it will automatically look more blue. But yeah, I've been really liking this way of working where I choose one base color, like in this case the orange, and then I make a color layer and lower the opacity, and then I put like the base colors that way. I find that recently I am into colors that are more unified looking. So one way to do that is through having like the base color, and then all the other colors are on a lower opacity, so they naturally just will blend with that color. It just gives more of a cohesiveness. And especially for an illustration like this that's meant to look aged, meant to look old, it makes sense because all of the colors would have faded over time. Usually I would wait until the end to add the grain over, so I would put in all the colors and shapes first, and then in the end I would add the grain. But I put in the grain earlier in this process, and I actually really like that. Something about adding in the colors underneath the grain and just having the grain to start with, I don't know, it was just something different and nice. I think it was cool to be able to see exactly how the colors would show up in the end during the process, you know? Because the grain will naturally always desaturate the colors that you put, so by putting the grain down first, or the texture down first, you're able to see what the final product will look like while you're actually making it. So I think that worked out pretty well. At this point, I added in a yellow, and I started adding in more of these blue tones, and I started to realize that my palette was becoming a muted primary color palette, which I think I tend to lean towards recently. I think the colors red, blue, and yellow are just really good for like fun, playful pieces of artwork like this. And I like how they intensify each other, you know? You can't get more opposite colors than these three, so they just really intensify each other and make each other more vibrant. I added in a few more pops of bright colors like this light gray, and I finished up the yellow, and then I zoomed out and adjusted the hue of all of the different colors. I like to go through each layer and play with the hue and figure out just what kind of overall feeling I'm going for. So as you can see, I kind of decided to mute a lot of the yellows even more so they wouldn't be super distracting. I want this to have more of a Halloween feel, although it's like very fun and cheerful. I wanted it to have more of a Halloween feel, so it needed to be a bit more muted. I didn't want it to be so bright. And then you can see me tweaking the colors of the clouds and absolutely resisting the urge to make them puke green. For some reason, I always am trying to visually, like part of me wants a puke green, but I was determined not to put puke green into this illustration. I really felt like it needed to be skewed orange, and green, it would just be too much for it. So I went with this kind of gray color, which still gives kind of the feeling of green, but it's not as like visually abrasive as green would be against the orange. But then I started adding in shadows, and for the shadow layer I went with a purple. And the reason I went for a purple was because, you know, I was trying to give that Halloween vibe of orange and purple, but also purple is a fantastic shadow color. It's also kind of a normie shadow color. It's like one of the safest colors that you can shade with, in my opinion. Also maybe like a blue is even more normal, but purple is pretty normie. Pixar, for example, uses purple for a lot of their shading. But in this case, I just think it really helped balance out all of the orange that was happening. And so I used the inking brush for this. I think the brush was dry ink, and I just added in, you know, shadows here and there. I try not to do gradients as much as I could. I really like adding in gradients into pieces, but for this one, I wanted to keep it simple because this piece took an insane amount of time to create. I don't think I was prepared for how long it would take ahead of time. But yeah, I just wanted to keep it simple, cell shading for the most part. But yeah, you can see me adding in a little bit of texture on the ground. I debated about putting green for the grass, but then once again, I really wanted to stay away from green for this color palette, like I said, so I resisted the urge to add more puke green to the grass. I really liked adding the highlights to the water. For this I did an add layer, I think, and then I think a yellow over the top. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, no, it's an orange. But I really liked adding the little highlights here and there. I didn't do highlights everywhere, but I did use it in places where I knew I wanted the stuff to look shiny. My overall color inspiration for this is a very, very dear cartoon to me that I think it's very important that if you do not know about, you must learn about as soon as possible. And that inspiration is Mr. Magoo's Christmas. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Mr. Magoo's Christmas is a key part of the development of my just mental understanding of art and aesthetic. Mr. Magoo's Christmas had an impact on my young child brain that I don't think anybody could have predicted or currently could understand. I don't think I could explain to anybody in any sort of efficient manner how much Mr. Magoo's Christmas affected my psyche. Whether that's for the better or for the worse, this is up to debate. I'm not sure, but yes. At this phase, I zoomed back out and messed around with the different layers. So one thing that I'll often try is blurring different layers and seeing how it looks with some layers blurred and some layers sharp, just to create difference between how the layers are rendered. I was also playing with the brightness of the whites, how high did I want the overall contrast to be. I really do like a blurred look on line art, but for this one I tried to just do a minimal amount of blur so that it still stayed like crisp and clear. And I'm going around seeing if I want to color the line art. Sometimes I will color line art, but for this was such a massive piece, I was tired. At this point I was ready to be done with it, so I decided not to color the line art. But then I went through and I added sort of a vignette on the outsides. I used a, what was it? It was like an airbrush brush? What is that? A spray paint brush. And I just did like a subtle vignette. I tried not to make it too dark, so it wouldn't overpower everything. But then, yeah, I added the highlights using add, and I believe an orange. And yeah, just to kind of make everything pop, I added some glow around the stars, added a glow to the moon, and then I was pretty much done. So this was the final product. It had everything that I could have hoped for, all wrapped up into one cohesive illustration, all of the scary factors of Halloween that I think are so often left out of just the conversation in general, our daily Halloween conversation. But yeah, everything came together really well, and I was happy with how it turned out. I completely underestimated how long this process would take me. But anyway, I'm glad that I did it. It's crazy because like I kind of look at this illustration now and it's like I don't even understand how it happened. I feel like it just appeared. Like I'm watching this footage of me drawing it back and it doesn't feel like it actually happened. It feels like somebody like teleported this into my life. It doesn't feel like I actually made it. I don't know. If you liked the video, be sure to like it and also leave a comment about what you liked about the video, or something, or what you'd like to see in the future, or what your favorite Halloween candy is, or what your worst Halloween memory was, or what you're going to be for Halloween, or you could tell me about how your day went, or you could and make sure to subscribe so that when I post other videos, you will be notified about it, and turn on notifications. I don't exactly know how all that stuff works. I'm going to be honest with you. I think you have to have notifications on to get notifications, but I don't know. A print is available of the haunted house illustration on my website if you're interested in it. You like my backpack? I love this backpack. See, look at this guy. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace out. Peace out.